And now, podcasting from the sun-scorched desert Southwest, weighing in at a combined total of 340 pounds, Brad Winchester, Tyler McDowell-Blanken, are Gimmick Infringement.
Welcome, everybody, to the Gimmick Infringement Podcast. I am Brad Winchester, and with me is my tag team partner, Tyler McDowell-Blanken. Tyler, we only went an hour and a half in the pre-show meeting today. How you doing?
This was a quick one. I'm doing great. I'm so happy to see you. We talked, production meeting. Of course, we went over the flow for today, right? We got a lot of great topics to get into. We also discussed basketball and our favorite hoopers of years past.
Yeah.
We had the Basketball Hall of Fame this past weekend. So Dwayne Wade, Becky Hammond, Greg Popovich, and countless others were recognized. But Brad, you were bringing up some of the names from your childhood, which made me so happy. We went into Pistons lore. We even looked up the 03-04 Pistons roster.
Trying to figure out who was on the bench.
Who was on the bench for that title team?
I couldn't even remember. Yeah,
we got Corliss Williamson. We put together that Darko Milicic. What was around that time frame, which is wild to me.
Yeah, not me. It's a bad memory. It's a dark time in Pistons history. The Darko Milicic decision.
That's a rough one.
Yeah.
That's a rough. You had weren't the. I know I'm totally helping here. The three picks after that, correct me if I'm wrong, in no particular order, were Melo, D Wade, and Chris Bosh. Right?
Sounds right.
Damn.
It reminds. We talked about this too. It reminded me of the Green Bay Packers selecting Tony Mandrich #1 overall instead of Barry Sanders. And if you're going, who's Tony Mandrich? I do not blame you.
Low key, that's what I'm doing, Brad. I didn't want to tell you that when you brought it up in the production, but I've never heard of that guy. Which position? Quarterback? Wide receiver?
No, he didn't last very long. God, I can't remember what he played. All I remember is that he went up against somebody, and I can't remember who it was, a well-known player who just killed him immediately. And that was sort of the end of his career. Wow. Just like he never recovered from that. Confidence-wise, steroids-wise, all of that, the dude just got blown up, and it was like, oh, this is bad.
Meanwhile, Barry is balling in Detroit.
Yeah, I'm looking it up now because I want to know. I'm looking at the picture. He had the mullet.
Okay, of course. Checks out.
I'm trying to think of it. Yeah, I can't remember who it was. All I remember is he played for Sparty, and then he was one of probably the biggest bust of that time for maybe for 20 years. Before certain Raiders quarterbacks got drafted, but who said they were watching film but didn't. There are a lot of bad picks, right? Like there's just historical bad picks where you're like, wow, that guy got picked. What a terrible decision. That one's got to be up there for me. Yeah. And Darko's up there too. Unfortunately, they're for both of my teams.
Even here, right in Phoenix, it's a pretty tortured existence. Even more recently, you've heard me say this, Brad. I think I've also lamented about this on Twitter a few times. I think this was the 2020 draft. We, meaning the Suns, drafted Jalen Smith, a big out of, I want to say Maryland, instead of Tyrese Halliburton out of Iowa State. Jalen Smith is now doing his thing in Indiana and is improving, but Tyrese Halliburton, I don't know, just went on to become one of the best young point guards in the game. He's a leader on Team USA. And the Suns could have had him. This could have been perfect. Chris Paul serves as a mentor, and now you have on the Suns roster Tyrese Halliburton, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant. I mean, it could have been glorious. And although there's definitely still title contenders this year, I just every time I think about the Suns, every time I see a Tyrese clip, I'm just like, man, y'all could have had him. And it was obvious, Brad, I don't know about you with your Barry example, but it was obvious on draft night that Tyrese Halliburton was the right pick. But when you bring into the equation wingspan and age, and sometimes you just overthink what should be an obvious decision. Yeah, Halliburton's older. Yeah, his shot looks a little funky, but this dude's a hooper. Draft him. You need an heir apparent to Chris Paul because Chris Paul's a vet. It was obvious, Brad. But I guess everyone listening to this, their team is not they're not 100% in draft picks, right? Every franchise has swung and missed on these.
Well, and sometimes it's right there in front of you, and it's the right pick, and they're a big, physical, incredible player. You have to go number one. Was Zion the right pick?
Man, that's a whole other episode. That's a whole other segment. We got
we're 5 minutes deep, and that's going to take us another 15. So
yeah, I'm gonna say yes, but it's definitely a to be continued with Zion. I have no idea how these next few years are going to play out for him.
There's just a lot of players, because you could even make a case for Derrick Rose, who was MVP of the league and was incredible, but then just
awesome,
and then just kept getting hurt. They did the big return for him, and he came back for a game, and then got hurt immediately. And not long thereafter, he was released, and soon after that, playing for my Pistons. And it's
some Pistons, some Knicks action. Now he's back. Well, not back, but he's returning to the city of Memphis to play for the Grizzlies.
Yeah, it's wild. Like his journey is just so interesting, to be the absolute pinnacle of your profession to you're probably coming off the bench for some light minutes late in the game if they need you. And it's just wild to me, because I don't know if you could say that draft pick worked out. I don't know how you even measure something like that. If you measure in years, like plural years, more than 5, then no, I don't know. With Zion, clearly the best pick, clearly the right choice. Will he ever play a full season? I don't know. So we'll see. I hope so. I want to see that dude healthy and play an entire season, because I think we could see something really special. But right now it's looking like I don't know who else he picked though.
Yeah. I mean, Ja went number 2, and he's dealing with his own. Not only has he had injury stuff, but we know that he has some other aspects of his life that he is trying to get right. My final question for you, Brad. I need a one-word answer here. If you could go back in time, if you're Pistons brass, and you could redo that pick, and you're not taking Darko, I just need a one-word answer from you. Are you taking, now with the hindsight of seeing how all these guys' careers played out, are you taking Melo, Chris Bosh, or D Wade?
At that time, without knowing how things are going to play out later in the future, I'm taking Melo. Given his college career coming right out, it wouldn't make sense not to.
Won a title.
Yeah, I think it had to be Melo. Man, that's tough, because I'm thinking about how would he, who gets tossed from that roster in years.
You're thinking of the roster construction now.
Yeah, I'm like, which Wallace go? Because that's probably what would end up happening, or probably Prince.
And if you take D Wade, does that mean Rip is going?
Rip or Chauncey? I don't know where they put him, because I don't know. I don't think that team is successful without Rip just never not moving. That dude was running full speed the entire game for hundreds of games, just nonstop. I love it in a face mask, man.
In a face mask,
it didn't make any sense. Just absolutely crazy. But I'd probably go Melo.
Yeah, that checks out. I like that. He was I mean, so much hype and warranted hype. He was the man in college, and even though he didn't, get to the promised land, he didn't get several rings like D Wade. All these dudes are incredible, and I don't begrudge you. I think if I were you, I'd probably lean Melo as well. But you also could take Bosh. You could take all these guys. Bosh. These 3 guys were hoopers. Yeah. Darko didn't quite break right for him in the NBA, but the Pistons will be back there.
Thinking, Sheed from the perimeter was the weird part, right? That was what set it apart. But then you had Ben down low just robbing people, just ripping the ball out of people's hands. And
Ben is 6'8".
Yes,
it still doesn't compute in my mind. I guess it's just largely grit and want to.
Yeah,
Love that dude. HBCU play.
Well,
Like I love Big Ben.
Dennis Rodman had no right to be able to get rebounds the way he did either. He was just
True
so
that.
gangly, and he would land with like an 8-foot leg span, and just stretch out across half the court and just make people be out of the way. It didn't make any sense. But I don't know. Chris Bosh down low would have been really interesting. But then which Wallace goes away? Do you put one on the bench? Because that wouldn't have been bad. If you keep everybody, I don't know. I'm gonna have to think about this for a while. Well, I could hear right now clicking, Tyler. It's people turning their show off. So let's get in to the conversation, and we're gonna start without talking about wrestling. Tyler is about to bring us something. I haven't seen this film. I don't know anything about it. I had to look it up when you told me about it. And I was like, oh, this is where that shot of the Jimmy Butler, John Cena picture came from. I'm not sure. But it's time for GI at the Movies, Hidden Strike Edition. Tyler, take us away.
And now, it's time for GI at the Movies.
So I can first tell you that the picture you saw of Cena is from Vacation Friends 2.
Okay.
Separate streaming platform, separate movie. So my man is just Cena is really out here. So Vacation Friends 2 is a Hulu property. I think it's coming out at the end of this month, but that's where I think Philip Lindsay deserves credit from this on Twitter. Philip Lindsay of Fightful fame. He said it looks like white Jimmy Butler. That's where that photo came from. Totally separate movie. But the movie that I did see, which you alluded to, Brad, is called Hidden Strike. It's on Netflix, and its two main stars are one, John Cena, and action hero, action legend, Jackie Chan. Here is the quick plot. 2 ex-Special Forces soldiers must escort a group of civilians along Baghdad's, quote, highway of death to the safety of the Green Zone. This movie's ridiculous, wow. Brad. You do not need to rush to see it. It was about a week or two ago. It was on my Netflix homepage of top movies in the US. A week later, it's off there. I had to search it to find it on this property. So it came in pretty hot, but I think, people have cooled on it. Ironically enough, this film was actually made prior to the pandemic, and it's just being released on streaming now. What popped me, probably moment number one that popped me in this movie, was going back to this highway. So this is a scene with John Cena, and he says, "It's the highway of death. It's the most dangerous highway in the country." Well, John, of course, like with that name, Brad, what can you think of a name that's going to be more imposing than Highway of Death? I'm only expecting fatalities and nothing good to occur there.
Highway of Fatalities.
Highway of Fatalities. That might be the one. More difficult to spell than Highway of Death, for sure.
Yeah, scroll up the top,
Yeah. So, you know what? This was better than I thought it was going to be. I had pretty low expectations going into it. I don't think you need to rush to see it today by any means, but if you're looking for a very cheeky, definitely Chinese-produced heavy action film, there are like several Chinese studios that made this film. Was really interesting. Lots of dialogue as well. I think you should give this one a shot, Brad. Cena and Chan had some really good chemistry, I must confess. There's a lot of talk about oil and money and corruption. It was okay for a streaming action movie. Here is my question for you, though, as we wrap this up. Jackie Chan, is he the biggest celebrity what if in WWE history? Granted how this guy is lauded for doing his own stunts. He's probably best known for his work in Rush Hour alongside Chris Tucker. I'm really shocked that we never saw him in WWE, any celebrity crossover. Is he the biggest what if for the company? He's charming. He's athletic. He's still got that smile, even at nearly 70 years old. Please say yes here.
I don't think so. You have, aside from the people that were in the WWE, basically the entire cast of Predator is a swing and a miss. Like we don't have Carl Weathers. Arnold Schwarzenegger is that's the one.
It's a big one. The Governor.
That's the Arnold versus Hulk Hogan was gonna make $1 billion the box office in the mid to late 80s, right? Like there's no way that doesn't just set world records.
The Pumpin' Iron Jones. That's the name of the.
Yes.
That's the name of the match. Sold out arena.
Yeah,
That's a good point.
I think those guys, Jean-Claude Van Damme, even though he's a total tool as a person from all accounts, I think that in his later years he's kind of leaned into that and he's self-aware, which I think is cool.
Are you going to hit us with the Steven Seagal? I feel like we're creeping on that territory.
Absolutely not. No, that guy's way too strange. So, no, not Steven Seagal. But I think there are other guys from the 80s that probably would fit in there really well, but not like the 90s action heroes, because it started to go into like, and yeah, it was the 80s too, but like Bruce Willis, I specifically think of like the 90s for Die Hard 2 and 3. At least 3, he would not make sense in the WWE, but Jackie Chan would have been incredible. I think Jackie Chan would have been the crossover to do in the WCW world, where you could have him against the luchadors. Because like current Jackie Chan, no. Who's he wrestling? He's like 15, 20 years older than Jericho. So he's older than Sting. But yeah, he's got to be up there, right? Who else you putting up there? Jet Li?
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, those are all great names by you, Brad. For Jackie, this was the first Chan movie I've seen in, I mean, maybe since Rush Hour.
Lou Ferrigno?
Lou Ferrigno, yeah. Chan is just, to me, he just seems like the consummate baby face. You just see that guy, and I can't help but love him. I think he's great at what he does. He's had an amazing career. And you should give this movie a shot. I kind of talked myself into it during this segment, Brad. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And there are also, without giving you full spoilers, there are not even hints, Brad, but it's clear the way this movie ends that there's going to be a hidden strike too. So I want you to join the bandwagon while you still can, because it's clear to me that 2024, maybe 2025, we're going to see them run this back again on Netflix.
Well, Jackie Chan's a great one to pick. As far as being a baby face, don't look too closely, my friend. He's at least shades of gray. But we're going to move on to some of it's not great. We're going to move on to WWE talk. So without any kind of transition here, let's just get into it. Hit me with your question.
Yeah, man, let's get right into it. So SmackDown concluded with Jey Uso super kicking every Bloodline member in sight. Arguably a top 3 meme-worthy visual of the year. Shout out to Jimmy Uso. Even though I'm mad he turned on his brother, the meme that we got of his super kick sell.
Oh my God. That angle is perfect.
It was I think he's still on the floor in whichever arena they were in. I think they were in Canada, right?
He's getting plastic surgery to have the boot print removed from his face.
He still might be in that arena right now. So Jey Uso, though, right, his brother that we're all rooting for, he also stated after these super kicks that he is done. He's leaving all of this behind him. Here's my question for you, Brad. What did you think of Friday's segment? And how hopeful are you that the Bloodline storyline can be resuscitated? It seems like it's becoming pretty stale. And this is the first time I've seen a lot of the fan base, at least online, collectively down on where the storyline is at. So what do you think of Friday's segment? What does this mean for Jey? I know you're possibly thinking an NXT run, ? And how hopeful are you that the Bloodline storyline can be taken back to how hot it was?
I don't know if he's going to have an NXT run or not, but what I saw, and maybe he's just going on a vacation because the dude's earned it. Jimmy was out with injuries during the time that Jey held it down the entire time. He's been there every week that Roman has been champion. Every week. So maybe it's just a way for him to get a month off and catch his breath. Here's why I thought that. Eddie Kingston, I quit AEW, went to ROH. He's wrestling in the G1 Climax. So he's currently holding New Japan Gold, even though he's still employed by AEW, Tony Khan. Him saying specifically, I quit WWE. Maybe he goes to NXT since they don't consider themselves the same brands. I don't know, because they're doing a lot more brand crossover now. So it's helped the numbers of NXT. It doubled them basically from what it was a couple years ago. They went from like 250 to 500, and they're doing better numbers than Rampage now. And I'm not sure what it means. I don't like the Bloodline story right now. I think I'm not saying that Jey should have won to end the story, but it would have been really poetic. But Jimmy coming back, the way he came back and just rehashing these old Bloodline tropes could not have been a worse decision. It's just, it was boring. It was bland, predictable, nothing new. If that was a debut of somebody, one of the other Fatus that's out there, if that would have been great. That would have been cool. Even though we would have called it lazy, at least it's a new wrinkle. This was just Jimmy turned for no reason whatsoever. There's no explanation. The end. And now Jey quit. I don't know that I care that Jey quit. I hope Jey goes on and does wonderful things. Why are you splitting up the Usos? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So if their contracts are up or something, it means they're jumping ship and they're going to end up somewhere else. Hopefully AEW, if that's the case, to bolster their waning tag division, which is weird to say since it was such a huge tag division. The trios division in AEW has taken it over. I don't know how to feel about this, man. I loved Deuces Uces as he hopped the barricade and left. I thought that was great.
It was good.
Roman's injured. He's going to be gone. He's not going to wrestle for a month at least. And I don't know what you do with Solo and Jimmy, the two maybe least charismatic members of the Bloodline. That's what's going to be on TV with Paul. Jimmy's come a long way. Don't get me wrong. That dude has brought it since coming back and being part of the Bloodline. This has been good. So I'm hoping that they give him some mic time and we're surprised by him and he's awesome. But Jey charisma wise is on a different wavelength and Solo doesn't speak. So not really sure what you do for segments from here forward.
Yeah. I'm wondering, do we get the insert of a new member of the Bloodline?
Has to be.
It has to be, right? We've seen some folks on Twitter, I think the Jacob Fatus and others of the world kind of putting out cryptic tweets that is alluding to maybe they're going to be appearing on Friday night soon enough. I think it's at least a major possibility, Brad.
Yeah, I agree. Or maybe this is a way to finally bring The Rock in so you can set up Rumble.
I wish. I
don't think it's going to happen.
I'm dubious. I'm dubious at best on DJ appearing.
But it's like that's really all you got left to play.
Yeah.
Otherwise, so what do we? There's nothing to care about here. It's not.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's not as compelling as it was. I'd rather see what's happening with LA Knight, wouldn't you?
For sure. To me, it would seem like this, although not a new point raised in the community, WrestleMania main event, Philadelphia, Cody versus Roman 2, and Cody has to beat him. But we're recording this, Brad, in mid-August. What do we do for the next? I mean, we still got 8 months until April. I just don't know, unless we get a Roman versus Solo or a Bloodline Fatal 4-way. I don't see which viable contenders they're going to give to Roman from now through WrestleMania. Maybe throw some names at me, Brad, but I don't see who that person is. We got the Sammy match. We got the Cody match. You and I disagree with the booking on that. And then we got the Jey match as well. And unless there's someone I'm not thinking of, Damian Priest is not mentioning Roman Reigns at all. Surprisingly, he has the briefcase, but has expressed no interest in cashing in on the tribal chief. I just don't know where we go from here.
So it's August. What's the pay-per-view next month?
Payback.
PLE, excuse me. Payback. That's right. It's Payback. So, and then what's in October? Do you remember?
Oh man, Extreme Rules, I want to say.
That's it. That's
Used
the
to
one.
be because
Yep,
it's
it
like
is
Halloween, spooky.
Halloween.
Bray Wyatt hopefully will be back.
Probably the Bray Wyatt return. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a year. Wow.
Saturday, November 25th, Survivor Series. The
Has
only
to be
thing,
there.
it has to be a War Games, and maybe that's when Jey has his own faction. Maybe Jey teams with Sammy and KO,
Interesting.
and we keep doing that.
Yeah, I think at this point I'm actually maxed out on that.
But that's
all we get.
That's all we have.
That's Rock, Dwayne Johnson. If you're listening to GI right now, come on, man. We've been down for you. I bought your sneakers this past summer. Project Rock Jones, like, could you do us this one solid and show up for the Roman match? It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. No, absolutely not. So, my question for you, Tyler, with Vince McMahon still in the news for lawsuits, and with the Endeavor deal still in the works, hasn't finalized yet. Vince is now the only McMahon member left on the board. What are your expectations for the WWE in the next 5 years from a business standpoint? And I know you didn't see this coming.
No, I did not. And there's no follow-up. I thought there was going to be a part B or part C.
Nope, I'm not giving you options. I just want from a business standpoint, since he will still be chairman and he will not have I don't believe he will have decision-making control now that he's on the board. So he won't be the one approving all of the events and places and that kind of stuff. It will be up to the Endeavor board and whoever WWE gets to pick that's on the board, but it will not be Triple H, Stephanie McMahon, definitely not Shane. So I'm not sure who they get on there besides Nick Khan. But I don't know, no family members anymore. So it's now outside of the McMahon sphere. So what are your expectations with Endeavor at the helm?
Yeah, I didn't even realize all this was going on. I'm so glad that your brain is so wired toward the business side of things. It's a great question. What do I expect? I mean, maybe this is a cop-out, but I expect their profits to continue growing. It seems like after every PLE, we see the tweet that goes out that says, this has now set another record. We got it after Money in the Bank. We got it after SummerSlam. Domestic records are being shattered. Outside of the U.S., records are being shattered. Merchandise, stream. To me, it seems like it's only going to continue growing, regardless of who they put at the forefront. What I do expect, I'm worried of even saying this out loud, but I will. What I do expect or suspect is that the current model they have on Peacock is not going to be around 5 years from now. I'm super worried as a consumer that they're going to start charging for the premium live events, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Royal Rumble, etc. I think that that's going to be a major shift, Brad, and I think that will only contribute to them continuing to gain record profits. I mean, 5 years from now, I don't know that Roman is going to be like, I hope at that point he's just on a beach somewhere, relaxing and sipping from a fruity drink. And I think he and the Bloodline have been a main reason why the records have been shattered, because it's just been a phenomenal story. I think they're going to continue to break these records, Brad. I think the pay-per-view model is going to change, unfortunately, for consumers. And I just think they're going to continue to be uber successful and grow. How about you?
I agree with you. I actually think it's going to go away. I'm hoping that they lower the price point for the premium live events, as you said. But I think it's a fair point. AEW does, they're famous for saying they do 4 pay-per-views a year. They absolutely do more than that. We're up to 6 because of All In plus Forbidden Door. So we have the other 4. And I think if WWE does, we're going to keep it on a streaming network, but it's $20 to watch WrestleMania, to watch the Royal Rumble, Survivor Series, SummerSlam, your big 4, then I would pay $20. If it's pay $50 or $60, I don't know that I'm going to do that. I just don't. I will for Mania, unless it's 2 nights, $50 a night. That's
how do you do that? Is it a bundle gimmick?
That's why I think it has to stay with streaming, but maybe they just upcharge a subscription. So like you go to Peacock or just put it back on the network now that Endeavor will own it. I can see that absolutely happening, and then making the subscription service price go up. They can merge it with UFC content if they want to.
Right. Like the ESPN, ESPN Plus, where you have to pay extra for the live
Exactly.
UFC fights, right?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. But if they can make it all streamlined into a platform, and maybe they decide they just want to start their own network and then kill the media rights deals entirely, if they can work it so they can get advertising on their own terms, then they don't have to broadcast on USA Network and they don't have to broadcast on Fox. The only problem with that is those still get eyeballs, and everybody has, well, not everybody, but you know what I mean? Like most people have access to that, where not everybody has access to funds for an extra subscription service when I'm already paying like $1 billion for all the other ones between Netflix, Peacock, Paramount Plus, Disney Plus, Max. There's just so Apple TV Plus. There's just so many of these things out there. Like I was watching something the other day. I don't remember what it was, but I was like, oh, I have Showtime. I didn't even know I had Showtime included in this. So I just kind of get Showtime, and I have for over a year, and I didn't even realize it. I had no idea. So
You could be watching all these episodes of Power. I think Power is a Showtime property. I haven't watched Showtime since
Billions is on
like
there.
summer 2013. Wow, I'm happy for you.
Well, that's just it. And the shows that I need to watch probably for this podcast are on Stars, like Heels.
Heels,
So,
yes.
yeah, I think in the next 5 years, I think we're going to see a huge shift in media rights. I think we're going to see a huge shift in the way they put out premium content. And I think that overall, the brand will continue to grow in terms of revenue. Now, if they just start getting cute and accidentally brawl for all themselves by merging WWE and UFC events, I think it's going to tank. I think it'll be fine to have, like, you know, when the Undertaker's at ringside or Triple H is at ringside at a UFC event, that's good for everybody in the companies. But if it's the Undertaker is at a UFC event, or like, I know I'm using him again, but I was just thinking about that last one. Let's say it's I don't know, Matt Riddle, who is from that world, and he's at the UFC event, and then he gets up and confronts somebody in the ring at the UFC event, but challenges him to a fight pit on I don't know, Payback. That could be compelling because you're going to get some of the best fighters in the world to do that. Unless they're like, no, it's a real fight and we're going to find out what happens at WrestleMania. I don't want to see that at WrestleMania. I want to see silly professional wrestling at WrestleMania, not people punching each other. I watched Bart Gunn get murdered by Butterbean. I don't need to see that again. So there's stuff like that I don't necessarily want to see, that I firmly believe could be a possibility, because they look for different ways to cross market and cross promote, which I think that part's fine. And I'm sure there's going to be like skins and stuff in the video games going forward. You can become current stars in the UFC game, or in like a creator wrestler, or vice versa. I can see that happening just because of intellectual property. I just hope the UFC fighters get paid for it.
100%. And it's interesting because apparently Peacock is losing millions upon millions annually. That is not one of the more successful streaming services. So it's kind of a juxtaposition of Peacock is really tanking right now, even though I'm a huge Dateline fan. I actually really enjoy Peacock. Apparently, yeah.
But Tyler, to the point, Max is what, $16 a month?
Yeah.
If you want the HD stuff, Netflix is a little less than that, but about the same price.
Right.
Disney Plus is along the same price. If you bundle it with Hulu and ESPN, you get my point here. The problem is that with Peacock, everybody that has Xfinity or Comcast, they get it for free.
Right.
So nobody's paying anything for it. Of course, it's going to lose money. I'm paying for the premium account. It's $5.
Yeah.
Like my other accounts are triple that.
Right. Right.
So
that price point is interesting.
Yeah, so to be producing all these TV shows and marketing that way, and then you have WWE stuff, I don't know why they didn't charge extra for the WWE content and be like, you know, in Max and Peacock, you have all of these hubs, and if you charge access for the hubs, then that revenue can go directly to those things being created on those hubs. I spend a lot of time on the DC side of Max. I like my DC movies, especially the older ones. And there's a lot of animated stuff I'll throw on every once in a while. And I'm like, oh, actually, this was good. I didn't realize it was a hard R cartoon, or whatever. They have all these WB properties on there, but then I'll jump to Paramount Plus, rolling through all the Mission Impossible movies right now. So, and they get stuff seemingly faster than anybody. And then I go to Peacock and I'm like, there's Mario Bros. Oh, and also, what is that new Wes Anderson movie that came out? The one about the aliens. I can't remember what it's called. Asteroid something. God, I'm drawing a blank. Anyway,
Did Asteroid City?
Yeah, that's it. I think
that's the name you're thinking of.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. I feel like I'm Taz if I say it like that.
Yeah, no, me too. Me too. I was like, is that just me embracing my inner Taz as I do every week?
Yeah. But
That
yeah,
makes sense.
it's. I like getting those movies quickly, but I don't have to pay for them. During the pandemic, Disney was like, "Now we're going to release them at the same time, but you got to pay $20 if you want to watch it." I feel like that's fair. I'd rather do that. I'd rather do that than go to a movie to see a comedy. I don't need to be in a big ass movie theater to see a comedy. I want to go in there. If I want to see Godzilla just nuke Seattle, okay, I want to be by big screen.
Poor Seattle, man. They just want their Sonics back.
Yeah, that's why I said nuke it. Like, you may as well just glass the whole place. They're not getting them back, and you got to put them down because of that. That's
to our Seattle supporters. Got your back. We're gonna get those Sonics back for you.
Thank you, all of you, and I'm talking directly to you, the one. It's crazy. This has become a thing here as a yammer. I have no idea what this is going to look like. I think it's fair to put a premium cost on a premium event. Also, all of these problems would have been solved if they simply just kept it on the network. They had their own subscription model. They bundled with Peacock for money. Peacock's not doing well.
No.
Put that shit back on the network. Endeavor will then own it. That's the way that will work, I believe, because that's a WWE property that they're still running internationally. And then be done with it. Everything else goes back on there. You charge for the subscription service more than you did before. Make that a $15 deal for everything WWE for all time. And just be done with it. I think that's the way to go, man. Like, it's the easiest fix, easy solution, lots of money. You don't have to worry about it losing money that way. And if it's all going directly to you, you can control whether or not you want to add like another $5 to watch a PLE when you're already paying to be on that app. I don't see any other way around that.
Well, maybe someday WWE returns to their network stateside for us. Maybe someday Seattle gets the Sonics back. But what I do know, Brad, is that it is time for my favorite segment. I'm going to pass the mic to you. Someday when you have kids.
And now it's time for
I'm crazy.
Someday when you have kids.
You're crazy.
Tyler, this is a tough one for me. This is the first week back at school. I was immediately greeted by my students. I spent a hellacious week trying to get my classroom ready. None of the things I asked for were done. I asked my room to be painted, some power lines to be removed, nothing. There was feces everywhere. Mouse feces, rat feces, potentially human feces, I don't know. There is a urine streak up in one of the lights that's still up there from the pack rat that was living in the ceiling. Dead spiders, bugs crawling on the floor, carpet uncleaned, all of that. Absolute nightmare fuel. So I spent the entire week trying to get ready. My room still smelled like paint because I was still painting on Sunday, the day before we went back to school. I got pictures hung up. The room got painted. Last minute Larry here. And I was exhausted Monday morning. And my door opened. And the first person to walk through was a former student, a student I had last year. She looked around the room and went, God, this is boring. It was like getting punched in the face. And the worst part of all of that, Tyler, was because nothing got done, because I had to spend the weekend in my room trying to get ready, because I didn't feel like I had anything going. I didn't finish. I was waiting for the floor to be cleaned, and I had to go in early Monday morning to set up my classroom. and I didn't get to drop off Freya for her first day of first grade. I spent the entire day thinking about failing as a father and failing as a husband and failing as a friend, failing as a teacher, because my room wasn't ready. It's still not. I still got a little ways to go. It's getting closer. And man, it's the guilt of I'm not doing enough. I'm not supporting enough. I'm not there for my kids. I'm not there for my own child, even though I'm doing everything in my power to make sure that I'm trying to get there or I'm getting there as closely as possible. But man, when you care this much about your children, and there's no other feeling like it. Parents can tell you, like, it's not really describable. Like you'll do anything for them. And if you wouldn't, then you're probably not very good at being a parent. And not being able to be there for her on her first day, she probably doesn't care. She probably doesn't remember, but I do. And that's not something I want to leave with her. And I saw a quote, and it's, your kids won't remember how hard you worked. They'll just remember that you weren't there. And that's something that stuck with me. And I'm thinking about it a lot lately as I do all these extra things, telling myself that I'm doing this for the right reasons. But man, someday when you have kids, you're going to have to balance that work and life thing where you know how important teaching is to me. You know how it is to you, and you know how important doing the right thing for your students is, because essentially they're an extension of you. They're an extension of your family. There's no other relationship that's like that. I don't have a lot of colleagues that I'd be like, I feel that way toward, but my students, I'm like, those are my kids. It's how I refer to them. Oh yeah, my kids did this week. It's just different, but they don't outweigh my own child. And I'm going to be thinking about this one for a while, man. And someday when you have kids, you'll also have to weigh that.
Wow. That's heavy. I knew a lot of that, but hearing you speak about it the way you did, Brad, reminds me of this quote I heard at an event recently. It was at this particular conference a couple months ago, and one of the keynote speakers, his topic was largely about wellness in education. And one of the quotes that stuck with me was, he said, "Don't give your workplace the entire loaf of bread and then go home and give your family the crumbs." I was like, okay, I like bread, number one. So that's probably why it stuck with me. I'm thinking about the next loaf of bread I want. But then two, I was like, oh no, that's a really good, important visual of, yeah, we want to give our all, especially in a field like education, as you alluded to, Brad. We want to give our all and be all things to all people, literally every minute of the day. But you don't want that to sacrifice what you're doing for your family. So obviously I commend you, and I know it's been quite a journey to get to the first and now second week of the school year, but I'm proud of you for continuing to grind and continuing to strive for whatever that proper balance might be of, let me overcome these very specific challenges this year, but also be there for my daughter, be there for my wife. And I just have so much love for you, because there are some days where I'm like, oh my gosh, it's already enough work just to work on myself and to balance my own schedule. I can only imagine if I would like a partner one day, if I would like a child one day. I gotta work on some things on my end before I get there. So nothing but love for you, man. Nothing but love for our favorite first grader, Freya. And I hope that your life is full of far less mouse feces moving forward. I hope this was part of your experience heading into this year, but I hope magically, I'm hoping against hope, that you do not have to clean up any more feces or anything like that, because that is gross and
nasty,
completely absurd.
Yeah. And before I move on here, I do want to say that if I didn't love where I worked, I would have quit a long time ago. I love the people that I work with. I love the people that the community is such a weird one. You work there for years. It doesn't make any sense. That the school is in the middle of God's nowhere. The community is really strange, very supportive and not at the same time. But there's not a lot of places you can go to work where you can park your car and people can park their horse at the same time and also be like a 4A school or whatever we are now, because there's 2,500 kids. So it's bonkers. I also want to say shout out to Chris Mueller, shout out to Doc for supporting the teachers, for running a kind of a raffle to give away some shirts and some merch. I'm not sure what he was planning on giving away for people that would enter into the raffle. They had to buy something off of the Amazon wish list of several teachers, and running that meant a lot to me, and I'm sure my fellow teachers that were in the mix. Not a lot of people stepped up, so he did. He bought things off and made sure everybody had something on their wish list that was purchased, which is not something he had to do, which I really appreciate. So shout out to Doc. Tyler, speaking of Doc, I'm looking at ours, and it looks like up next is our AEW question. So hit me with your question.
It's true. So I'm going to present what my original question was going to be, but then I'm going to give you what my actual one is, just to keep you on your toes. I thought about it this morning, and I wanted to shift my question for you. So All In Wembley is less than 2 weeks away. Here's the card we have so far: Swerve and AR versus Darby and Sting, Young Bucks versus FTR, the rubber match, Saraya versus Tony Storm versus Sheeta versus definitely going to be Britt Baker, and of course the headliner Adam Cole versus MJF. So my initial question, Brad, was going to be kind of a temperature check on how you're feeling about this event. We've learned that we will have to pay for it. It's not going to be on Max.
Yes.
It's certainly not going to be on TBS, which I feel a way about, but it's certainly not going to stop us from buying this thing. So I was going to ask you for your thoughts, and certainly if you want to touch on it, if you're super stoked for one of these, would love to hear that. However, I was thinking about that first match I mentioned, and one of the participants, one Darby Allin. So to me, it seems like he is everywhere in AEW these days. Yes. He's on Dynamite. He's on Rampage. He was on Collision, doing the cool like skateboard thing to Luchasaurus's back. And so it got me thinking about how vital he is to the company. Of course, we know the Elite, Mox, you could argue a Britt Baker, right? Like all these folks are seen as kind of pivotal faces of the company, Chris Jericho, etc.
Yes.
But I don't think we discuss Darby Allin enough in that particular conversation. Given how big of a fan favorite he is, how many kids you see dress up as him every single week, Brad, and the unique quality in Darby that, unlike, say, an MJF or a Ricky Starks, there doesn't seem to be any inclination that he would ever jump ship to WWE. He's even been quoted as saying, I have no interest going there. And I quote, my character would be some dude jerking off in a boiler room.
Yes.
Like, me just thinking about Darby, WWE, aside from that funny quote, it just doesn't really compute. Like, yeah, he's not going to be a WWE guy. Again, unlike a Ricky, MJF, his contemporaries. So my question for you is, how would you describe Darby's value to AEW? Because I think it's much higher than we sometimes think.
Oh, yeah, for sure. He is. MJF is top few, right in AEW. You could argue he's the number one overall AEW talent. And then Orange Cassidy, and then it's probably Darby. Britt might be before Darby. I don't know. Britt, all of them are up there. And I don't know that Jungle Boy's stock is the same as the other guys right now. I like what he's doing, but Darby is putting out content. He's everywhere. He can wrestle with anybody, with any style. Some of my favorite stuff is with the big guys, like him and Brody, him and Miro. I love watching him just torpedo people. Him hitting Cage and just getting ricocheted like it was nothing, swatted off, was awesome. Also Cage, good God, He had like veins popping out where I didn't even know veins existed. That was crazy. And I think to your point, I think Darby might work in NXT. I don't think Darby would ever go to the main roster ever. Not as anything but a manager or as something really dumb. And even in NXT, I don't know how far he goes there. Darby's in the perfect spot. He cannot be. You can't praise Darby's work enough. He consistently puts out really good matches. He's crazy dependable. He seems to be made out of rubber. And he's single-handedly responsible for getting Sting back into a wrestling ring. Just because he's like, what do you mean? You can wrestle. It's fine. I love that. I think that whole story is just great. He's just like, yeah, you're old. So what? Get in there. I think that's great. And Sting was just kind of like, oh, all right. Next thing you know, he's jumping off of like balconies and stuff in his 60s, which is bonkers bananas. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what he's going to do in London. You know, they got to have something planned for that coffin match.
They have to. And also that crowd's going to go nuts for Sting. I can't wait for him to be in an arena that big with that many people and get his flowers before the end here. Because you know he's winding it down. He's been around for almost the 3 years that he said he would be around for. Yeah. So that's going to be coming to an end.
And I think he's been undefeated in this run. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know that we've seen him in singles competition, but tag team competition, trios. Unlike his last big stadium show where he lost to Triple H at WrestleMania, this is going to be a case, I think, for sure, where him and Darby win. And his AEW record is probably going to be unblemished. I think he's going to go out undefeated, whenever that may be.
I hope so.
Rightfully so.
I hope so. I think that would be really cool for him.
You can't hurt the guy. Hit him with the chair.
They're giving him the Goldberg.
I tickled him.
Yeah. Which is incredible.
Yeah,
I love all of it, man. But Darby, back to your point, Darby is just, he has to be recognized as one of the premier talents in the company, the main talents as a homegrown, but he's top 10 for sure.
Yeah, I would agree. I was thinking about that, and I think his case is so special and so unique. I don't know if there's another member of the roster. Feel free to jump in if you can think of someone, Brad, who has this very unique value to the company that he does. And whereas there's not that sort of imminent fear like, oh man, 2024, right? That's so much of MJF's story, or has been at least, is 2024, the bidding war, or the chatter about, well, Ricky Starks seems like he would really fit WWE. He's got the Cody pyro. Cody's his guy. To me, it seems like Darby, to your point about NXT, yeah, I could see that. Certainly more so than the main roster. But this past week, seeing where Darby was and how he kind of had his tentacles everywhere, I just thought, like, man, this dude makes so much sense in AEW and has brought so much to that company from day one. I think on the 3rd episode of Dynamite, he was wrestling Chris Jericho in the main event. And I definitely think he's going to become TNT champion sooner than later once again. So yeah, flowers to Darby. I love what he's doing.
I think the problem with Darby going anywhere else is that, well, not anywhere else, but specifically WWE, I don't think he does well in the training system there. I don't think he and any of the great coaches that they have back there are going to get along, because he's going to want to train his own way, which is go do extreme sports and film it and whatnot. They won't let that happen. They won't allow him to show his own art. So I think there's a lot of stuff in there that Darby's allowed to be Darby in the AEW sphere, which was one of his motivators for signing, because Tony was like, I don't want you to change, go be you. That can't happen elsewhere. And the only other person I can think to put on that list would be Orange Cassidy. I don't see him going to WWE, because I think they changed his gimmick and then it wouldn't work. Yeah. And I just think he's perfect where he is. I think this was the best case scenario for him. I kind of think it's the best case scenario for MJF as well. I don't know that MJF works as well in WWE, because I don't think they're going to allow him to just be bleeped again. If the Endeavor thing changes stuff, now we have a path for MJF. There'd be a lot more probably money available for the company to pay him to come over, to be more enticing, and they might be able to go more TV 14 with him. So if that happens, I think that could be really fun to watch. I want to see MJF and The Miz. I want to see them battle. You know it's going to be good after all the talk. The same way that The Miz and LA Knight immediately sold me a ticket in one promo.
Yeah, a good segment on Raw.
Absolutely amazing. So, great question by you. Okay. Mine was, you scared me at first. I was staring at you like,
Good. That was the got to keep you on your toes. You know
this
you know
damn.
how we do.
So I'll read to you what I wrote. So All In is shaping up to be a really fun event. I'm sure there will still be returns, surprises, etc. Tony's going to have something for the Wembley crowd. He has to. However, almost nothing has been addressed for All Out. Hobbs and Miro will be amazing, though. Hobbs and Miro, oh my god!
I'm still blushing after that segment. This is exactly what I wanted.
I have to redeem myself, and who better to do it against than the Redeemer? Woo!
I don't know. I think both guys need a win.
Yep.
We'll see. I can't wait, Brad. Yep.
It's going to be great. But Fight for the Fallen is also moved up to this week because of the tragic fires in Maui. So All In will be airing on pay-per-view. We know that. Bleacher Report Jones, in the States at least. And one can imagine the same for All Out. Still haven't heard anything about the bundle, and we're getting close. So should AEW have skipped All Out this year in favor of All In and in lieu of Fight for the Fallen? Do you think that the numbers will be great for both parties or for both papes? Or do you think this was a risk with little reward?
Whew. A lot of it is to be determined. I think all in. I'm gonna have it really fumbled that too much. I don't know how Taz and Nigel and Renee and all of them are doing it.
It's crazy.
I think All In. I think London is for sure gonna be a smash success. We already know.
Yeah,
Brad, you keep a really close eye on this. They're at 80,000 tickets sold.
Yeah, 79 something last time I looked.
Do you remember you and I months ago on this here very show were predicting 40, 50,000 would be a massive deal?
Yeah.
And here we are, 80,000 later. Incredible. So I think All In for sure. In terms of, obviously we know the ticket sales, but I think in terms of pay-per-view buys, it's AEW's first stadium show. We know folks are going to pony up the $50 and make this happen, us included. In terms of All Out, yeah, this is new, Brad. We haven't seen this, dare I say, in any major wrestling company where two massive shows are going back to back like this. I am a bit fearful that All Out is not going to be successful in terms of pay-per-view streams. My thought is MJF versus CM Punk will headline that show.
Mm-hmm.
It's in Chicago, so that we know that's going to bring out the community there. So in terms of in-house, I think it'll be successful. Pay-per-view buys, I'm not as convinced just yet. I think Punk versus MJF is probably as good of a headlining match as you can have, but asking the consumer to drop 50 bones back-to-back Sundays, it's a lot, man. Are you and I gonna do it? Yeah. Yeah, we are. It's kind of essential to what we do here. But for the everyday fan who may not, that their work may not rely on them viewing these major shows like you and I do, I just think they're going to be okay with maybe catching YouTube clips or just waiting till Dynamite to see the fallout. Major success for London. For All Out, I tell you all that, Brad, but to answer one of your questions here, I don't think they should have canceled All Out. I think it's a really huge deal for them to run it every year. So I am down for taking the risk in this case. I'm totally cool with them continuing the fall tradition that is All Out, but I am concerned that it's going to be one of the lower bought pay-per-views. I could be completely wrong. Maybe you and I speak in a month, and both were massive and huge successes for the company. But I think just asking folks to drop that kind of money back-to-back weekends may prove to be very, very risky. How about you? What do you think?
I think it's a huge risk. And I think the only way they're going to be able to flip that is because it sort of feels like last year's Forbidden Door, where they were just cobbling things together right before the show.
True.
And right now we only have one, maybe two matches set.
We got Luchasaurus versus Darby. Maybe that's the headliner for All Out at this point. Who knows?
Luchasaurus versus Darby.
It's a Dynamite match.
Hobbs versus Miro, which I hate to say that, but that's also kind of a Dynamite match right now. The build's not good, and there's no stakes, and it's just sort of big meaty men, which I think is going to be a great match, but I can see that being like the third match on the card, fourth match, beer break. I want to see it, but I don't know how many casual fans are like, yes, Hobbs versus Miro for no reason. It's not even a grudge match at this point. So while I'm excited for the match because I think visually it'll be great, and I think we're going to get a lot of power out of that match, it's going to move kind of slow because they're going to lean into how strong they are, and then Miro's going to do something freakishly athletic that he has no business being that big and being able to do. I'm excited to see what they do with it. That's not selling a pay-per-view. So it's just not. And then Luchasaurus versus Darby is definitely not after Luchasaurus versus Brock Anderson, which is one of the worst matches I've seen in a long time on television. Ooh, that was rough. I don't know if it's going to sell tickets. Now, I hope it does. Cool. That's why I'm hoping at Wembley that there's some debuts or some returns or some reason to get really excited. Because if that happens, that could very quickly and easily set up things for All Out. And now we're off to the races. Maybe that's when we get and I have no idea if he's healthy, we get Kyle O'Reilly returning. Maybe he kicks Adam Cole in the face for turning on Roddy. But it seems like Roddy's doing stuff with the Kingdom. So I'm not really sure what the hell's going on with any of these people. So not that they always need to be buddies with each other, but I really don't know what happens after this. Maybe Will Ospreay shows up and costs Kenny the match, and that sets up their rubber match at All Out. I could see that happening. No idea, man. I have absolutely no idea. Because right now, All Out just seems like it's there. And that's your biggest show of the year. But All In's your bigger show of the year. So what are we doing?
It's tough. Yeah. And then imagine, though, if 2 weeks from now, this would be a really quick build. And I'm not saying this is maybe the route to go. But if you want to make All Out a must-buy pay-per-view, Brad, what if we get the trios match? What if it's CMFTR versus Omega and the Bucks? That's probably the
one, right?
That's the one match where you, myself, all of our friends are definitely going to buy the pay-per-view. Then maybe that's the secret here.
That has to be, or maybe because CM Punk was taking shots at Hangman off air after Collision. Maybe they're setting up a CM Punk Hangman rematch. I don't know how Hangman feels about all of this. I know Punk is mad or was mad. For all I know, everybody squashed everything already. We have no idea what's happening.
I think that's a real possibility.
And I think they're just working us. Like, why would they report that they were on opposite sides of the building if it wasn't true? But at the same time, what if they're like, you know what we should do? We should have our locker rooms on opposite sides of the building, and then we'll really ramp it up and lean into it. I felt like it had been squashed the moment that Kenny started pretending to chomp on an arm after he came back for the first time.
So that was a minute ago.
That was a long time ago. I feel, but Punk was still injured. So I feel like they're good there, or at least they're cordial. They're never probably going to be friends, but whatever.
You don't have to be. Yeah.
No,
we know that. Like in any workplace, you don't have to be.
Tyler, to your point, if we get like we're getting Bucks versus FTR at Wembley, right? Of course we're going to get run-ins, right? Like there's going to have to be CM Punk coming down to celebrate a retention, and then it getting tense, and then Kenny runs out, or maybe Hangman runs out.
I think we answered the question. That's how you make All Out destination viewing.
If that happens, like that alone will be the reason to buy a ticket, right? Like that's it.
And then all of this was for nothing. It was a smashing success. Tony Khan, we bow to you. You're a genius. You did it again. And
if not, it's going to be absolute cheeks. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, for sure. Well, speaking of things that can go really well or might end up being a dumpster fire, Brad, I have some news. I have some updates to give you about admittedly one of my favorite programs, one of my favorite shows every single week. You know what the deal is. You know the vibes. It's time for a rose from me. Hit the music.
And now, for a rose from GI's most eligible bachelor.
So let's get into it, Brad. Predictably, I called this. Xavier was eliminated. They're in Fiji So Charity had all-day dates with each of the 3 remaining men. We had Xavier, we had Joey, we had Dottin. And Xavier, I sent you this clip just a few hours ago, actually. The most meme-worthy moment from this week was Xavier sharing with Charity that he cheated on a previous partner. Apparently, it was a vacation with his boys, and over the span of 5 days, he cheated on his partner several times. So it was super awkward, one of the most awkward dates of the season, because he was sharing that as Charity was looking for affirmation that he is ready to move forward to potentially get down on a knee and propose to her in a couple weeks. So predictably, this man was sent packing. He didn't even make it to fantasy suites. He divulged all this before fantasy suites, which I don't know if maybe that's even more commendable. I'm not really sure. But Xavier is gone. However, he's for sure going to be on the Bachelor in Paradise thing. Like, I think he's not done with this franchise at all. And actually seems like a person you would want to root for. Not a total villain, but obviously the cheating wasn't great. And Charity feels a way about cheaters. We've heard that her ex was also unfaithful. And that's just, she does not want to hear that. So in terms of looking at this week, Brad, down to the final 2, Dottin and Joey. As I shared last week, my prediction is that Dottin is for sure going to win. I think it's unquestionably he's going to be the favorite here. We did get a tease that Aaron B., who was previously eliminated during hometowns, is flying himself to Fiji. So it gave me vibes of Roddy Strong. He's flying across the world just to get his heart broken, just like we're seeing Roderick Strong do every week with his neck brace. So I don't think Aaron B is going to play a role in this at all. I think he's for sure still done. This week, though, we're taking a break from Fiji. It's going to be the Men Tell All episode. So all of the dudes are being invited back. Apparently, we're getting an appearance from the Golden Bachelor as well. So we'll see what happens. But all of this is pro wrestling, Brad. It's run-ins, it's returns, it's heels, it's baby faces. I think the wrestling element of all of this is definitely seen as we cruise to the finale. So Dottin is winning. I'm going to stand by that. And I'll report back to you what my findings are next week.
I don't think anything's going to top for me this year. That really cringy clip. That was one of the worst things I've ever seen in my entire life. Why would you go out there like that? Anyway,
it was rough. Like a win for honesty, but also you said that, but I don't think you were prepared for okay, but what does that mean? Like, do you still want to make this work? I think I do. My heart tells me yes, but my mind is still unsure if I'm going to cheat on you. My man, I hope you got that suitcase packed, because that black SUV is just waiting for you. It's pulling up right now. Yeah. Goodbye, Xavier.
Have you ever wondered if it's like the feds are SUV? Like you're just immediately arrested. It's a thing. It's like you're off the show, but also we're interrogating you next.
Yeah, very, very conspicuous. Yeah, but this dude is like he's a PhD student. He's trying to find cures for cancer, and he's good looking. Like, this dude is going to be fine and seems to have a pretty good head on his shoulders. But I agree with you, brother. It was definitely a curious decision by him for sure.
Okay, Tyler, I don't have any curious questions. I don't have any curious decisions, but I am curious. What did we miss?
Yeah, we missed a few things, namely in the wrestling world. So big win for Chad Gable. Yes. You and I are consummate fans of him. I think we bring up Chad Gable quarterly on GI, just to like, oh, he had an excellent match. He's really good. We want great things for him.
Yeah.
So he is now the next contender for the IC title. He won the fatal 4-way on Monday. And although I don't think he's going to dethrone Gunther, I think that match is going to be amazing, and I can't wait to see it. Very quickly on the AEW side of things, very collision focused, although shout out to Sheeta. Very glad she got 2 main event opportunities back-to-back weeks on Dynamite. I love the pairing, Brad. I just, if they release a T, I'm committing to buying it. I love the tag team of Chris Statlander and Willow Nightingale. Yeah. Part of me thinks this ends up with them feuding for the TBS championship. I'm not sure if it's a babyface versus babyface or what that looks like, but the Long Island connection, they're just I don't know. I just have a crush on both of them. I think they're so talented and so great, and they're just awesome. And then finally, big shout out to the Collision main event. I think this is what Collision has nailed super well. Is it just had that cliche, that big fight feel of CMFTR versus House of Black. The moment that we got CM Punk and Malachi Black in the ring together, that felt like a moment that I would be willing to pay for. It is something that Collision has done. It's something Collision's done really well, even though we know a screwy finish was probably in effect, right? Samoa Joe
through the whole thing.
Foreshadow City, not surprised. And I'm usually not a big fan of those, going back to my Ricochet versus Logan Paul thoughts. I thought that this match was just a perfect microcosm of why Collision has been such a noteworthy addition to AEW's weekly products. This match was awesome, Brad. The big fight feel, again, the stare down, the sitting down in the ring between Punk and Malachi. It's just everything I love about wrestling, and this is one of my favorite Collision main events so far.
Likewise, a Collision is my favorite wrestling show right now. It's so good. The energy at the beginning of it with the dun, 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 underneath everything just makes it feel like, ooh, something important is about to happen. And then you go into Elton John, which I didn't think was going to work. And somehow it's perfect. It's perfect for what that show is. It completely captures the energy. I believe Jim Ross this week was quoted as saying that Dynamite feels like stressful and kind of chaotic and tense, and Collision is like relaxed and calm and easy. And first of all, so glad that Jim Ross is back. Glad he was back. I think he was back last week. It's kind of surprising everybody because he had a concussion. He had the throat stuff. He's still recovering from cancer. So getting JR on the call is always great, even if he can't decide between trios and 6-man tag. I genuinely enjoy having him on there. I wrote down a couple of notes and they were Collision centric. We missed a whole bunch more than this. We missed Rhea stuff. Congratulations to Rhea Ripley and Buddy Matthews on their
big shout.
Whatever their real names are. Congratulations to those people who are getting married.
That Bobby, so true.
I doubt his name is Buddy Matthews, but I don't know. Rhea Ripley seems unlikely. So
what a power couple. I hope we get an intergender tag with them someday. They're just amazing.
God, I hope so. Yeah, they're both great. They're so good in the ring. They are unbelievably beautiful people, and I'm glad they're engaged. I think it's great. Malachi Black just kicking dudes in the dome. Holy hell. Like that match, there were a couple there. And I loved at the end that CM Punk and Malachi both kicked each other in the head at the same time.
And then fell.
And then both dropped.
Yes.
That was amazing.
Yes.
One of his spinning
Brad.
One of the spinning heel kicks he did. He doesn't kick with his heel. Obviously, he hurt somebody with that. So he sort of like slaps him with it. He spun around, and I don't remember who he kicked, if it was Cash or who, but he just slapped their face off with the bottom of his foot, and it was amazing. And Buddy going over the top rope into Brody when they had the moment where like, are you okay? And he grabbed his head because Buddy went over and his legs, I think, kicked him right in the face, which is why he had like the paint dangling off when he was in the ring. The question that I had watching the match was, are we not doing house rules anymore? Because the thing is all matches for the trio set are house rules only. And my guess is that they decided not to pick a stip because they're old school. That's the only thing I got. So I missed the house rules lights. I missed the house rules idea. I don't know why they didn't do this for this. Maybe they just thought, maybe Tony was like, no, this match is too big. We got to have it be like a traditional match. But I would have liked to see a house rules match for this. And then the tomfoolery with Samoa Joe might have made a little bit more sense. But in any case, I thought it was great. Great week of professional wrestling. We are spoiled, man. I don't know what else to say. Thank God.
Thank God for wrestling. And we got speaking of, you led me perfectly to this. Speaking of spinning kicks, RVD, we saw him return, and he looked.
Didn't even talk about
your
him.
guy, the pride of Battle Creek, Michigan.
Yes,
Michigan, stand up. I'll just say this about his match. I texted you this. It wasn't even the Rolling Thunder for me.
Jump
it
off
was,
the
it
apron.
was the leaping, spitting kick. He probably has like a Van Damme kick. I don't even know what he calls it.
The Van Daminator.
But the RVD and then jumping, and that had to be the most snug one I've seen him do since maybe 07. I thought the match could have been over and he could have pinned
Jack
Jungle
Perry
Jack back.
Every bit of that.
That was nice.
That was not a leg slap. That was the leg slapping Jack, and that was the sound it made. That was crazy.
Yeah, that was perfect use of RVD. That made me really happy.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah, that was great. Well, you all make us so happy, especially if you are hearing this or seeing us right now. You made it. We are, again, so grateful for your support. You know you can find us, or hopefully you can find us online. We have our articles on wrestling, pop culture, and much more. All you have to do is visit gimmickinfringementpod.com. You can follow us on X or Twitter or whatever you're calling it. We're at GIPod19. Brad is at Wind Duster. I am at Tyler J. McDowell. Once again, we thank you for being here, and we hope you'll join us again for the next edition of GI. Gimmick Infringement is a part of 19 Media Group. You can listen to us on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you find podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube via the 19 Media Group channel. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share.